My general thesis is that the internet and AI and psychedelics have all combined to accelerate people's personal and spiritual development for those that seek it. And as the algorithms that choose which content we're shown get more sophisticated and better at matching people together based on their interests, I believe that it's easier than ever for like-minded individuals to find each other online, to reach out, make contact, and form online communities where they can build connection and share ideas. And we're already seeing this play out through things like school, through Discord groups, and through stuff like even subreddits would be an example. And I think that the next logical step as society continues to break down and become more undeniable for, you know, even the most ardent of NPCs out there, is that these communities begin to realize that they would prefer to take their ideas and try them out in the real world in decentralized communities and essentially drop out of society, pool all of their resources together, purchase land, and see if they could do a better job. And I think that a lot of these communities are going to pop up very rapidly in quite a short space of time. And what we're going to see is a kind of Darwinistic style of natural selection, as we just naturally watch as different ideologies and systems of governance unfold, and we see which can stand on their own merit and flourish outside of the system, and which dissolve into chaos. And I think that this is going to hyper-accelerate our societal growth as a species, because for the last 300 years or so, we have been kind of stagnant under the capitalist system, which makes sense because any system that benefits those in power, it's not in their interests to experiment with or try to change things up, right? Because the status quo is working for them. And, you know, capitalism, for all of its faults, it is undeniably the best that we've found so far. And obviously my end goal is to move beyond capitalism. I think that, you know, in another 2,000 years or so, as a species, we'll probably look back on this period of our advancement and laugh at how naive we are, that we thought that a system that, you know, prioritized growth at the expense of all else, you know, infinite growth, on a planet with only finite resources, we'll look back and laugh at how silly we were. But for now, the capitalist system, it's not something that can be overthrown overnight, which is where a lot of the idealistic commies and the socialists go wrong. So for me personally, I think that we have to use the capitalist system and treat it as a necessary evil to begin our detachment from it, which is why I started my own business in order to generate money to fund the community that I intend to start. So how did we actually get to this point? Well, let's talk about history a little bit, because the idea that you have to understand is that capitalism is currently the world's first global religion. And I first heard these ideas put forth by Professor Zhang on YouTube, who is a great source of knowledge. I'll link his channel in the description. But this all ties in with the Catholic Church, the Protestant Reformation, the current system of capitalism, and then my own thoughts expanding beyond that, which we'll get into. So, first of all, how in the hell is the Catholic Church linked to capitalism? Well, in medieval times, the authority of the church was, in a way, what kept you sane. Because people back then took God for granted. You know, they believed in a God. It was a part of their everyday life. There were very few atheists around. And Christianity, especially, is a very paradoxical religion. There's I mean, God in general is a concept that is basically impossible to grasp. And when you're being told that you either must completely believe or burn in hell for eternity, that places a lot of pressure on you, because, how do you know that you truly believe? And the Catholic Church was the solution to this problem, because instead of people having to grapple with these problems themselves, they could look to the authority of the Church to provide them that sense of security and peace of mind. Now, when the Protestant Reformation happened and the corruption in the Catholic Church became too apparent to ignore, the Church started to lose the authority that it once had. And, this was great for egalitarianism and freedom of thought, because for the first time it allowed people to have a direct connection with the divine. People for the first time could read the Bible themselves and develop a personal relationship with God. And there are a lot of benefits to this. But the drawbacks were that it created this almost existential void internally that led to a lot of anxiety, because for the first time you're now left alone to grapple with the ungrappleable, the paradox that is God and the universe and the great mystery that we find ourselves living in. And this existential hole, this anxiety, this almost OCD-like tendency to analyze and look for signs that you truly are a believer, that your faith is real, is what led to the elevation of the symbol of money as the first global, I call it an organizing life symbol, a symbol that everybody could unite behind and view as the highest good. Because if you became wealthy, it was a sign that you were blessed by God. God had blessed you with wealth, or the ability to create wealth. And so you had people filling this existential spiritual void with the accumulation of money. And this is essentially the system that we've seen over the last few hundred years. When a society has a unifying life symbol, so in the first instance this was the idea of God and the Church, and then that illusion is shattered, that society will then elevate a new symbol to take its place. Because you have to have something that you believe in. And the capitalist system filled this void, the vacuum, so effectively that most people now don't even question it. As the saying goes, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. So the problem that we're having now is that the illusion of the capitalist system is now also shattering. Just as we saw corruption within the Catholic Church, we're now seeing and having exposed the corruption within the current system. The bankers, the financiers, the politics that come with the accumulation of wealth and power, and the evil that leads to. So the illusion in the current symbol of money is now also being shattered. So what symbol are we now going to elevate to take its place? Well, I posit that the next global world religion, the next unifying life symbol, will be freedom. And for some people, freedom means different things. For some, money is freedom. Having the wealth to be able to go anywhere, do anything. For a lot of people, that's certainly a part of it. For others, it could be spiritual freedom. For others, it could be the freedom to freely associate with whoever they choose. My point is that everybody has a slightly different definition of freedom. However, it seems that freedom as a symbol is being elevated in the general consciousness as something that we can all agree is a good thing. And this is why I believe that the next step will be in the formation of self-sustaining off-grid communities who each unite around their own shared values and their own definitions of what freedom means to them. Now, this isn't all going to be a good thing. You know, for some people, freedom might be holding hands and singing Kumbaya in a circle. For others, their definition of freedom is going to be an ethno-state. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with that, but I do support people's right to freely associate with whoever they choose, as long as they do so peacefully and they don't infringe upon others' rights to do the same. So, I think what we're about to see is almost like a free-for-all, as these different groups decide to pool their resources, buy land, and create their own micro-societies. And again, through the power of the internet and instant sharing of information, we're going to have an inside look into a lot of these communities as they develop. And people are going to be able to see which ones work, which don't. People are going to be able to see which communities they would like to be a part of, depending on their own values that they hold most dearly. And I've thought about this a lot, and I don't see any future where this doesn't happen. And I also think that it's overall a positive thing for society. Because just as evolution on an individual level allows us to see which traits are most beneficial to survival, I think we're now going to be able to start seeing on a collective level which societal traits are most beneficial to a group's culture, you know, the survival of a society and cultural group. So we live in extremely interesting times, and I'm very excited to see how it all develops, honestly. You know, as for myself, the values that I hold most dearly, that I would like to found a community on, this requires careful thought. Not that I haven't thought about it, but speaking it aloud on video, it makes it more concrete. I think at heart, I am an anarchist, in that I believe that there will always be humans out there that will exploit positions of power for their own end. And rather than try to eliminate that from human behavior, because we've seen how catastrophically that can go in regards to, you know, tyranny and bloodshed and genocide, right? I think it's fairly obvious at this point that you cannot program human beings or force everybody to hold the same values that you do. So I think if we just accept that it's an undeniable fact that some people are going to exploit positions of authority, the only thing that we can do is remove hierarchical positions of authority altogether, because then people can't do damage through those positions. Now, this requires a group with extremely high trust and cohesion. And this is why I think that small groups are going to be the most successful. There's a concept known as Dunbar's number, which is that communities of over a certain size, 150 people, past that point it becomes impossible for everybody to know and connect with each other on a personal level. And when you don't actually know the people that you live with on a personal level, and you start to see them as just like other characters, I guess, in the game, people to be used to achieve your own ends, is when social cohesion and mistrust within society starts to develop. Social cohesion breaks down and mistrust starts to develop. So I think that for the type of group that I have in mind, and this is something that Christian talks about on his channel as well, is radical exclusion followed by radical inclusion. I firmly believe that in a group of people with common sense, you don't need laws. If people are enlightened, for lack of a better term, you don't need to tell them not to murder or not to steal. It's pretty obvious. So I think what the future looks like is people online who, through the content they put out, attract like-minded people into some kind of online community where there's a vetting process, people get to know each other, make friends, form real connections, and then from there be invited to get together and meet in real life, and then from there be sort of invited to the inner circle, which is the group that actually plans to purchase land together and start some kind of community. And then from that point, once you're in, that's where you get to the radical inclusion part, which is extremely egalitarian, accepting of other people's beliefs, their values, their, however they choose to express themselves. And I don't believe that you need elected positions of authority in groups like that. I believe that individuals who display natural leadership qualities will rise to the top by the virtue of their own character. I also want to add a warning in here to be careful, because as these groups start to pop up, you're going to see lots of charismatic leaders start to acquire cult-like followings. And it's something to be very wary of, is that these people might not have your best intentions at heart. Beware of false prophets that come to you in sheep's clothing, for inside they are ravenous wolves. Beware of spiritual narcissism. Beware of people who seem too good to be true. Beware of people that make grand promises. Be discerning. For those of you watching who see and understand the ideas that I'm laying out here, and who wish to start communities of their own, we've got to be careful about the values that we hold and the message that we send forth into the ether of the internet. It's been the case throughout history that people looking to climb the social ladder, they have to demonstrate aptitude in the characteristics that the ruling classes admire. So to give you an example, in the medieval feudal times, this might have been like a peasant page displaying great courage and valour in battle in front of his liege lord. Or in modern times, this might be the intern at the company who displays agency and high intelligence in money-making strategies to his boss. And the people in power, they like to mentor and help those that display these traits, partly because it confirms their own worldview. It confirms the validity of their own personal unifying life symbol. So let me try and explain what I mean by this. Let's say you are a CEO at a company. You're going to take a shine to the new intern who is very money hungry and develops or demonstrates the character traits that go along with that, because it confirms to you as the CEO that money is this important goal, because here's somebody else that wants it just as badly as you do. And it confirms that the symbol that you've built your life around is the right one. And it's for this reason that the high-performing CEO is likely to look down on the hippie who dismisses the idea of money and status and power, because the hippie's unifying life symbol is something else entirely. But on a subconscious level, the CEO takes that as a personal attack without realizing that all symbols are both equally meaningless and equally valid, because they have the power that we ascribe to them. And world history to this point has been groups of people competing over their symbols and trying to force others to conform and adopt the worldviews that they believe are most correct. You look at any religious holy war that's ever happened, and it can basically be summed up by that point. We think that our unifying life symbol is the right one, and we think that you should think so too, and we're willing to use violence to make you think that. And I think that humans now have gotten to the point where we're tired of it and we see through it. And this is why I think that freedom is going to become elevated as the new unifying life symbol that we can all get behind. And I think that we are advancing in consciousness to the point where there's a significant enough minority that understand that freedom can mean different things to everybody, that we could be able to make this work. But as I say, we need to be very careful about the messaging behind these ideas, because as these new micro-societies start to form, the leaders of them will, by default, become the new ruling class in a way, in that they are admired by those who aspire to that lifestyle. And as I said, those who are aspirational will emulate the qualities that that get them to the positions that those in power hold. And we need to be aware of this, because if we can promote within the consciousness that the traits that lead to a harmonious village with all of your friends are honesty, transparency, integrity, ethics, and we can make those traits part of the unifying life symbol, part of the highest good that people aspire to, then I think this is how we take that next step as a species. So why was capitalism able to succeed in becoming the world's first global religion when all other religions up until this point had failed? And I think it's because all other religions promise paradise and salvation after death. Capitalism was the first system that was able to promise it while you were still alive. And the capitalist equivalent of salvation is retirement. Think how many people there are out there right now who are working jobs that they hate, saving up for the promised future, for heaven on earth, when they can collect a pension and not have to work and enjoy the world, finally start living life. Hola.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about today. So, if you enjoyed this, let me know. It's always helpful. If you hate it and you think I'm an idiot, I would love to hear why. I make these videos in the hopes that somebody will prove me wrong. I close my mouth in the hopes that you will open yours. Right, now I've got to try and figure out how I can get back into my room because I'm still locked out. So, peace. See you later.